Charlie Kirk on his show joined the ranks of a number of different conservatives recently that we've seen just blatantly decide and communicate that they don't believe in a fundamental part of our Constitution and the importance of keeping the church and state separated. We went over Lauren Boebert saying effectively she is pro-theocracy, and now Charlie Kirk is saying the same. Let's take a look.
Well, it's so sick because South American and Central American countries are actually very religious and very Catholic. So they're going into religious countries with almost missionary fervor to go and try to make these countries less religious. And again, there is no separation of church and state. It's a fabrication. It's a fiction. It's not in the Constitution. It's made up by secular humanists. It's derived from a single letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote to the Danbury Baptist Convention. Of course, we should have church and state mixed together. Our founding fathers believed in that. We can go through the details of that. They established literally a church in Congress. Anyway, separate issue. The point, though, is that this is acting like a religion, though, isn't it? If we live by their own false premise of separation of church and state, then why on earth and how on earth why would they want to go bring this belief to other countries? I mean, they're almost kind of as if it was the 1400s and they're sending missionaries to the New World filled with despotic, nihilistic atheism and humanism. I mean, what's the thought process behind it?
Completely incoherent and false, as I'm sure you could have predicted there. As I said in our coverage of the Lauren Boebert video, the literal words, separation of church and state in that order are not in our Constitution. Good job for Charlie Kirk. That's not what people are referring to when they say separation of church and state. They're referring to the concept of separation of church and state that is explicitly laid out in the Constitution, which is this segment we looked over previously. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So Congress, i.e., the government, but Congress is the one that makes the law. So Congress cannot make a law that respects the establishment of a religion or prohibits. Obviously, we don't want to get in the way of people practicing religion, but you also can't give preferential treatment. You can't give more power to one religion over another, because that is getting in the way of freedom of religion. Okay, to do a little school class for them. This is the Establishment Clause of the Constitution. Quote, the Establishment Clause is found in the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. This clause prohibits the federal government from making any law regarding the establishment of or freedom to practice religion. In simple terms, the Establishment Clause prohibits the United States government from establishing an official religion, as well as from taking any actions that favor one religion over another. So just think with me at first grade level. If the Constitution explicitly tells us you can't establish a national religion, and we understand that the founding fathers, based on their own writings, what they meant by that was you can't officially establish a national religion like many other countries have, but also you can't give preferential treatment, you can't give extra power to one religion over another, because any uplifting of one religion does inherently tell the other religions they are less legitimate. People are less in their right to practice those religions. So while of course people are going to individual politicians govern based on their own religion because that drives their beliefs about the world, and of course people in power are going to practice religions and all of those things. And yes, have we been heavily influenced by Christianity as a country historically? Absolutely. But the government cannot take explicit actions that favor one religion over another or favor religion over no religion. It's not that difficult to understand, and it's a lot bit frightening that many right-wingers are feeling completely comfortable these days just outright saying, I don't believe in one of the crucial parts of our Constitution, freedom of religion. I don't believe in that. I don't believe it. It's wild. It's the same thing as people just coming out and saying freedom of speech is not in our Constitution. That's stupid. It's blows my mind. It's really scary because they now want to move to a way of being in our country where one religion rules over all the others. And that can't be acceptable because, first of all, how you would decide which religion, even if you say Christianity, which little sect of Christianity is going to rule over because they disagree with one another a ton, how you would get through that without people who don't subscribe to that religion being oppressed is completely implausible. And so that is why you say the government and the church have to be separated. And the government can do its government things, the church can do its church things. But if you intermingle them, you are going to cause a situation where people who don't practice that particular religion or don't practice any religion end up getting oppressed. And in a good, free society where people have liberty and they have the freedom to practice whichever religion they choose or no religion at all, that cannot be allowed. And that is what the founders intended. That is what we should all intend now, looking back at the Constitution and just mapping out our own ideal society. But many on the right are not on board with that anymore. And that is very, very scary.